So before we dive into like the series themselves, how do you feel about the Kobe and Shaq comparison for those two?
I don't love it. It just doesn't make sense because it's two wings. Devin Booker is going out of his mind. He's unconscious in these series. Like, Devin Booker is definitely playing better than Kevin Durant. I feel like overall hustle. He's the one playing more minutes than Durant, and Durant's definitely coming along for the ride. But I feel like Devin Booker has been the bona fide go-to guy. He's been the bona fide number one, and then he's loving playing with Kevin Durant. I feel like this is the most inspired I've seen a star play. He's always been more of a chill dude, and he seems like he loves playing with KD. And I actually like this team without Chris Paul on the floor because I want Devin Booker to have the ball in his hands every play. And what the Suns are doing is we either have the ball in KD or Booker's hands. So it's like, I get why people would compare them, but I don't like these comparisons until a duo wins at least. Can we win two championships first?
Mm.
Because like Steph and KD never got the Shaq and Kobe comparison. So
Mm.
it's like, why are we putting these type of monumental comparisons out there way too early when we don't know if they're going to make it out of the second round versus the Nuggets? And they haven't showed an ability to be able to win in Denver. They had two games in Phoenix where they pretty much dominated the third game, but the fourth game came all the way down to it. And then Joker gave them all that he could handle with no real help in that game, drops 52 points on them. So without even making it to the finals with this duo, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes until we win at least one or two championships.
My problem with this comparison, and you kind of alluded to it, it's like, isn't a Kobe and Shaq comparison supposed to be a big man and then like a guard slash wing? It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense for me where who's the Shaq in this situation? Because it's not Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is like 100 and what, 95 pounds?
Yeah.
Shaq is 325. I don't agree with that comparison. And so, like, I talked about this when we were talking about the Sixers. It's like, if there's a Kobe and Shaq comparison, how about Harden and Embiid? You have a very dominant big man. You have a very great, all-time great scorer in James Harden. That to me makes more sense. If you're going to give a premature comparison, that makes more sense to me than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You're going to compare those two. You can compare to how those guys operated when it was Kevin Durant and Steph
Yeah.
and how those guys operated. That makes a lot more sense. Two great scorers, two guys that can make their own shot. That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, and the guy who did I just found it funny because he's one of those guys where all he does for a living, his channel Streamers Pro Sports, where all he does is play a clip from the national media, and it's like, isn't this comparison wild that they would talk about these players that way? And like, it's so
Mm.
disrespectful. And then he's like, the dominance of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker is actually similar to Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, and I have stats to back it up. Well, like, yeah, I also have 3 rings and 4 finals appearances to back this up. It's like we can't go off of sheer dominance in against a team that can't guard the rim, and then they can't guard either of these players on the perimeter. Like,
Mm.
once the Suns go up against a real team like the Celtics or the Lakers or the Warriors, just a team who can actually, I don't know, play on ball defense, which the Nuggets clearly cannot. Aaron Gordon worked for a little bit in the first game and it works in Denver, but for me, like, the dominance factor, sure. Can they do it for a round? Okay, but can you do it for 4 straight years at the highest level? It's like, that's where it's like, if we're gonna go out there, and I'm all for critiquing the mainstream media and people on ESPN, like all those outlets, like, you can't be going out there and doing the exact same thing that they are, because that just makes your content come off as disingenuous if we're gonna be like, yeah, I feel like it's terrible when we make these comparisons and it's unfair to the players. Like, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like, why are you starting to push that narrative? Because he's the same type of guy who's like, James Harden and Joel Embiid could never be Kobe and Shaq. And he's like, it's Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant, the next Shaq and Kobe. It's like, can we get to the finals at least once or twice?
Can you win a title first?
Yeah, win a title.
No. Yeah, I kind of agree. But as far as the series is concerned, this is another series that I can see going 7 because you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker playing at the peak of their powers. Um, they just don't have a bench. And then on the other side, you have Joker, who's getting anything he wants. Jamal Murray, really showing the bubble Jamal Murray. Remember when they made it to the Western Conference Finals and
Yeah.
he was just playing out of his mind? That's a player that I think is highly underrated, first of all. Um, I think the Nuggets are a more complete team, so I think the Nuggets should still win this series. However, we're talking about an all-time great in Kevin Durant, and we're talking about Devin Booker, who's always seems to be kind of slipping underneath the radar. So I still take the Nuggets to win, but I think this is a series that I think is gonna go seven.
Yeah, and I think it'll go 7 just for the fact that this series is coming down to the role players not being able to perform on the road. This reminds me a lot of the Dallas and Phoenix series last year where the role players would not show up on the road. A la Michael Porter has been horrible in Phoenix. Hasn't been able to hit a bucket, airballed a three in transition, and then Aaron Gordon hasn't had the same stroke at home. And then you have this guys like Bruce Brown, Jeff Green. They're not hitting their shots, but in Denver, these guys are playing really well. They've been able to pretty much compete with Phoenix in Phoenix. They were able to come back in game 3 till they let it slip away. And then game 4, it was back and forth the whole game. So I do think that they win in Denver. Phoenix goes back, wins in Phoenix. And then I feel like once you get to game 7, I don't know. I can't see any of the role players for Phoenix showing up. And that's another case where DeAndre Ayton disappearing act. Landry Shamit's not going to come in and light you up for 6 threes. And that was really the difference in game 4. So going to have Denver winning this game in 7 because I do think, as great as Booker and KD have been, Jokic has been the best player in the series. And it's not even close. Like, as great as those players have been, he's averaging 44 points a game.
Yeah,
This is
monsters.
absolutely ridiculous. And then he keeps getting stronger each game, and then he's just taking advantage of every single play. They're running the two-man action with him and Jamal Murray really well, and I think Murray's going to play better. He had some rough games in Phoenix. Still shaking off the playoff cobwebs a little bit, but I think in Denver, Jamal Murray's going to show up for game 5 and 7. Has a little bit of a rivalry with Devin Booker because they're both Kentucky guys. So they're there, I think, a year apart from each other. So there's
Mhm.
something there. But overall, like, Jokic, definitely the best player in the series.